What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a special taped episode 64 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, of course, with West Coast bias himself, Noah Maher, and we couldn't have a show covering Big Cap Day at Santa Anita without West Coast bias himself, basically in an angelic state in the sky. Noah, what's going on, man?
I'm doing all right. This show, we're going to be one with nature. So that's the theme of this show right here.
We please Mother Nature or something to be able to get us some tickets home. But man, this sequence actually came out to be a lot better, even though it is basically just a glorified pick four, which we'll get into. But there's some really interesting things. We're going to cover the full late pick five for you guys at Santa Anita because all four stakes races are in the late pick five, starting in race number 6 on Saturday. The only race that's a non-stake is race number 9. It's an allowance going down the hill. So it's actually a really, like I said, it's a really good sequence with a lot of different ways you can go, especially in the later races. But as I stated before, it does start with the San Felipe Stakes, which we'll get right into as soon as I go over just a few things real quick. As you see below, please go down below. Please like the video, comment your picks on who's going to win the big cap, and subscribe down below. It really helps us out. It's the best way to support our channel. So please, before you do anything, please go down below, like the video, and subscribe to the HHH Racing Podcast so you don't miss out on any massive podcasts on all the racing action all the way up until Kentucky Derby and beyond. But again, as you see scrolling, if you're watching this right when it comes out in probably about an hour, there is a big show with special guest appearances by Matt Bernier and Junior Alvarado coming off a massive Saudi Cup win. Howard, Pete, and Paul are going to cover the Fountain of Youth Stakes all in that whole late pick 5 at Gulfstream Park. So if you're watching this as soon as it comes out, please go over there 8 p.m. Eastern on today, Thursday, February 29th, as we are recording this. So go tune in there. Or if you're watching as a replay, go watch it after you watch this show on Big Cap Day. But of course, every podcast we post on YouTube's also posted wherever you get your podcast in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor, of course, being the main things. Please go rate, review, and subscribe over there. Power picks are still really live, guys. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast, the most affordable and one of the most profitable pick sheets on all of YouTube. After almost 550 picks over 2.5 years, we're still well in the positive. So please go to patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast if you're interested, or go to hhhracingpodcast.com to check out anything about us, or if you want to see previous editions of those power picks before you buy them. Again, that's hhhracingpodcast.com. One last thing, guys. That merch is still available. Last day you have to buy it and support our channel with merch is March 3rd. That is this Sunday coming up from when we're recording this. And yeah, if you guys have not gone and got your merch yet, once this drop is gone, this spring drop is gone, it is gone forever. There are no late orders accepted. March 3rd is the absolute last day you can buy. And whatever you buy, if Sierra Leone wins the Derby, you get your first $50 free. And that's on all items: hats, t-shirts, quarter zips, hoodies, polos, and koozies. If you guys want to help us and help support the channel and rep the brand, the link is in the very top of the description for the merch, guys. We really appreciate it. But no, let's get right into it, my man. Like I said, this is kind of a glorified pick 4, as you'll see why once I bring up the field for the grade 2 San Felipe. 300,000 going a mile to 16th for 3-year-olds. And Baffert has 3 of them, which obviously, as we all know, are not eligible for Kentucky Derby points this year. 2 of them are available. That's Scatify and McVeigh. But as I bring up our picks, and as you look on the screen, there is one very, very obvious horse in this one, the 1-5 morning line favorite, Nisos. And honestly, Noah, you see we both have them on top. This race really doesn't need that long of talking, to be honest.
No, we don't need to waste our breath with this race. But Nisos has been a freak through and through. Answered the test of the 2 turns last time. And he's really not facing any threats that he didn't face previously in the Robert B. Lewis. So yep. He looks pretty sure in here. I've got Imagination in second. I've always been a big fan of this horse. I thought he ran really, really well last time. And I think Maymoon, however the hell you say that, would be a clear second choice in here. So I went with him in second, and then I've got Scatify in third, or who you've got in second.
Yep.
who's probably the fastest of this bunch. But they're going a mile and 16th, not 7 furlongs.
It's true. But that my whole point was the fact that this horse is going to be out in front most likely by himself, if not, on pretty decent fractions. So if this horse can get any length of that mile and a 16th, I think he has a pretty good shot to finish in the money. And your point to imagination, I agree. I thought, just kind of a fresh face underneath rather than the horses that Nisus has basically been beating up on for the past few months in this division. So I'd like imagination either second or third. I can definitely interchange, but with Scatify, I just thought, being out in front mostly by himself could merit him a good second place finish. But guys, really, that's all we need to say. If Nisos is going to stalk the pace and do what he's done before, this basically should be absolutely no contest, and he's going to be 1-9. But so I'm going 3-1-5, Nisos, Scatify, Imagination. Noah's going 3-5-1, Nisos, Scatify, Nisos, Imagination, Scatify. But other than that, guys, that's the San Felipe. It really is. I mean, the other two, you have McVeigh and you have Wind Me Up. Wind Me Up does his best running on the lead. If he doesn't get the lead, I mean, that's basically it for him. McVeigh hasn't done anything. Still a maiden at this point and running in these spots, but when you have 5 horses in for $300,000, why not try and catch a piece of that rather than a $60,000 maiden special weight race? But guys, going to switch over to race number 7, and this is where it really starts getting interesting. This is the Grade 1 Frank Kilroe Mile, and as I switch over, it is a field of 9 with the morning line favorite being the number 2 Easter for Frisu and Phil D'Amato. Phil D'Amato at 9-5. Second choice is going to be the number 6 Du Jour for Pratt and Baffert. Number 8 Goliad is your third choice at 4-1 for Kimura and Richard Mandela. And as I switch over the picks right now, Noah, you are going with the number 2 Easter. I have him in second. And look, like I said before, this is definitely your most logical winner in this field, just based on numbers and everything alone. Mike, I do have a little bit of a concern with him, but I'd love to hear why. What you like most about Easter?
Yeah, I think we've got it pretty much covered here. I thought it was pretty much 2-8 or 8-2. Just with Easter, the situation kind of feels like you kind of got to knock him off the pedestal. I mean, he's just been so good lately. Yep. It's a little hard to see him not kind of do that. I think maybe your concern might be the distance, but I actually think he's a little bit better going the mile. I think he's got a little bit more of a late kick. I know he's run some decent races going a mile and 16th and a mile and 8th last time at 2 back. But I just think, he's a horse to beat. And then Goliad, who you've got on top, is obviously gonna be the speed. He's only got one way to go. I was a little against him last time just because 2 back he ran such a big number. But if he does that again, I mean, he's got a legitimate shot in here.
Yeah, and my big thing is it's not distance for Easter. It's just pace. I mean, I know Easter always comes with his run, but if Goliad, I mean, who's going to go with Goliad, realistically speaking? I mean, he's way faster than anyone else in here. Timeform thinks so as well, as we show kind of the pace structure here. You see Goliad's way out in front. You have the 9 just his outside first piece, who should be pretty close up there, but I don't think he's nearly as fast as Goliad. And I like that he doesn't have anyone that's super fast to the inside of him. The speed is to the outside. So if Goliad's just going to break and clear, I just thought it might be hard for Easter to catch up in that regard. You see Goliad's dealt with fast paces. Anything that gets thrown at him, he always runs his best, especially lately. And I think a mile is fantastic. I think it's a fantastic distance for him, obviously, going back these last 3 races. I just think pace scenario wise, I think he fits a hell of a lot in this race, and maybe could get Easter a little bit too much to do late. I have Prince Obama in third, guys. Nothing creative, realistically speaking. D'Amato on the rail with Dettori. This last race in the San Marcos, I think, was very, very good for Obama. Granted, that was at 1.25 miles, but he has run good races at 1 mile in the past. I think he might be a little bit better going longer. But, I mean, the Hollywood Turf Cup right here is where, even though he was closer to the lead, which I don't think he'll be on Sunday now, because obviously we should have mentioned that at the beginning, where they postponed this card to Sunday due to the inclement weather coming in at Santa Anita. And no, you and I share the same thing on that. We can push that down the road. We don't have to go over that right now if we don't want to. But yeah, Prince Obama, I think, makes a lot of sense. Maybe not to win, but definitely underneath it makes a lot of sense. But no, you went with someone else. You went with the number 6 Du Jour. Again, not too creative from us in here, but Like I said, I think between me and you, I think we got this race pretty much nailed.
Yeah, I was kind of in between Prince of Alba and Dujour, kind of for that third spot, and the distance for me, I just think Dujour is more of a miler
Yeah,
than Prince of Alba.
which
The
is
thing
fair.
with Dujour is I don't really see him out closing Easter, and I think Dujour is a better horse at Del Mar, which is a little bit more favorable to those closers. So I think he's going to be coming. I just don't really know if he's good enough in this spot.
Yeah, which is definitely a fair point. To the De Jour is much more of a miler than Prince Obama is, which I touched on. I think Obama might be a little bit better with a little more ground, but I think those two are interchangeable on the underneath side. And if De Jour wins, I would be surprised. But I think either you want, as Noah touched on, we have this race pretty much covered. It's either going to be the speed or the very best closer in Easter. It's either Goliad gets way too far for Easter to come up, or Easter's going to fly by at probably the 16th pole and win by 2. That's realistically how I'm seeing it, but obviously it could go many different ways with a lot of good horses in here. I'm going 8-1. That's Goliad, Easter, and then Prince Obama. Noah's going 2-8-6, Easter, Goliad, and then number 6, Du Jour. Gonna move over to race number 8, Noah, and this is the big one here. This is the big cap at Santa Anita on Sunday. It is going 1.25 miles for 4-year-olds and up, and it's pretty good. It's a field of 7, but if you're talking about West Coast, longer distance dirt horses, this is the top of the top stuff right here. As I'll bring up the Equibase here, as I said, 400,000 going 1.25 miles, field of 7, which is not too bad. Obviously, we touch on these field sizes out in on the West Coast, but the morning line favorite is the number 7, New Grange, for our good friends of the podcast and Billy Koch, Little Red Feather Racing, Victor Espinoza, and Phil D'Amato. Second choice is going to be the number 2, Highland Falls, which is actually the invader of the group for Brad Cox, with Florent Giroux coming out to ride. And third choice is going to be the number 5, Newgate, for Dettori and Baffert. And Noah, as I switch over the picks right now, we are actually a little bit different. So we didn't, we've been pretty much lockstep these last 2. This one we are a little bit different. I am going with the morning line favorite, New Grange, on top, but you are going a little bit different with Ors. I know you feel very strongly about the Argentinian bred Subsanador.
Yeah, so Subsanador came over at the end of last year from Argentina and ran in the San Antonio. And Sadler's done this before, where he's brought horses from overseas and kind of started them at the beginning of the year. He did it with a horse last year by the name of Miss the Cut, who I think came over and ran an allowance race and tried to run in a either a grade 2 or grade 1, going kind of about this distance at Santa Anita late in the spring. But anyway, so Sanador is the 5 in this race.
Yeah, so
yeah,
this is New Grange
is the 4.
here, and then Mixto is the 6 on the outside. But as they come into the stretch, I'll let you keep talking.
Yeah, I don't really think Sanador had too much trouble in this race. I just think New Grange was pretty much better that day. I don't really know how ready Sadler had him this day. I think
he's all over the place.
Yeah, I remember he galloped out well too.
Which will show, which is actually why I'm really into my stuff. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that Sadler had him fully cranked up last time, and I feel like this was the target all along. My only slight concern is that Pratt didn't stay. I would much rather have Pratt on board than Hector Berrios, but Hector Berrios is kind of Sadler's guy. You can see they hit at a decent clip. So that would be my only slight concern. But just with the horses that have been kind of running against each other, like New Grange and Newgate, I just haven't been, super thrilled. So in terms of kind of finding a horse that's a little bit of a fuzzy and a new face, this is who I'm going with, and that's Subsanador.
Yeah, and then like I said, you have Newgate underneath, and then my top pick, which is New Grange. I don't have Newgate anywhere. For my reasons, I'll touch on a little bit. But what'd you like kind of about Newgate?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what to do with Newgate. I liked him quite a bit in the San Pasquale. I know we like to touch on stuff with Rosario, but I honestly was not thrilled with that ride. He had him like really tight, especially going around the first turn. And I think the switch to Dettori might be to his benefit. But I kind of felt that Newgate and Newgrange, the two news were very similar to where they could kind of give that consistent effort. But like I said, I wasn't too thrilled. And I just ended up going with Newgate instead of Newgrange just because I feel like there's a couple more external factors that Newgrange might have to deal with. And that being, Reincarnate's shown some speed before, and Baffert might try and play some games to kind of try and set it up for Newgate. And then you've also got the 4 salesmen who ran in the marathon race on Breeders' Cup weekend, and he went to the lead that day. He hadn't shown it before, but it'll be interesting to see what he does too. So in terms of Newgrange getting the lead and doing what he did last time, I'm not fully confident that he can do that again.
Yeah, and see, the difference is, no, I don't necessarily think he has to do what he did before in the Santa Pasquale. I'm much more interested in a race like the San Antonio, where he was able to sit off a horse. Like if Reincarnate does show some speed, because I thought about that, because you have Baffert with the number 5 Newgate, who we touched on, is pretty decently fast out of the gate, but definitely prefers to have a target in front of him. Reincarnate is the horse to the inside that really kind of throws a wrench in the plan, where what's he going to do from the inside gate with a horse that's going to want to run to the lead where his best races are on lead, i.e. that Los Al Derby was very good from Reincarnate. So I agree with you completely. I think Reincarnate's going to show speed, but I love that Newgrange is going to be able to sit right off. And Salesman, you pointed out, I'm taking that Breeders' Cup marathon race with a little bit grain of salt. The horse did go to the lead, but I don't think there was anybody in anyone's right mind that wanted to be on the lead in that race, if I remember correctly. So I think that was a complete play by Pratt and Mandela to kind of just say, go see what this horse has. And I mean, as we all know, that Breeders' Cup marathon race, I'm pretty sure they finished 8 lengths, 20 lengths, 23 lengths. It was basically, it was a down the line, down the stretch. You saw one horse come, one horse, and just after another. Also, shout out Charlie with that Siskiny pick. Either way,
had to throw that in there.
Come on, man. How could you not throw that in there? That was his absolute hammer play. I remember that. That was absolutely hilarious. Either way, I'm not sure Salesman's going to want to go to the lead like that this time. I think it's going to be Newgrange Reincarnate, and I actually love Newgrange just sitting off the pace like he did with that ride by IRAD. So I'm going to look to Newgrange to be able to get that there. And I went different underneath. I do have Subsanador. I think he's very interesting underneath second time off of that kind of ship. I have Mixto in second, guys. And this could be a complete oversight by me, but I showed in the San Pasquale that gallop out. He was absolutely in front and finishing super well at the wire and continuing to go past that. When you look back at the San Antonio on Malibu Day, he did the same exact thing. He was kind of in that middling range, and by the wire, he was really finishing hard. And by the end of it, he did end up pulling away in the gallop out. And I know some people are, they love the gallop out. Some people don't. Wait, did we show the San Antonio? Yeah, we did. Sorry, I meant that the other way around. But you guys can kind of pick up what I'm going on. So here, this is the San Pasquale, and I'm gonna fast forward all the way to where they're finishing. And this is the one. This is another race where I thought, where I was really keen on with Newgrange here. And we'll show the stretch. Mixto is the number 7 here, kind of right here. You see, it takes him a little bit. He got a little bit cut off by Newgate. It takes him a little bit to straighten out here. But once he straightens out, guys, he really starts coming with a flurry here. We'll end up getting third, I believe, in this race. Not losing too far behind Newgate. You'll see Newgrange is absolutely just in hand right now, easily winning. You'll see Mixto finishing with a flourish, and you'll watch the gallop out here. Mixto is going to, basically just go by everybody. So I know, like I said, some people don't really like the gallop out angle, but I feel like Mixto is just going to get a lot better with distance at a pretty decent price. So I'm willing to take a shot on Mixto for, not bad connections in Calumet. Doug O'Neill and Frisu takes them out, who obviously has become pretty much Doug O'Neill's guy out there. So Mixto is going to be my underneath play in this race, but there's a lot of different ways you can go with a lot of good horses, even though this is a short field. And the horse we didn't touch on, Noah, is Highland Falls. the Invader coming from Fairgrounds with big numbers here, which ahead on the buyers, but time form doesn't have him much ahead of anybody. Reincarnate actually has the highest time form, and that was from this Parks race, which came up very fast, being with Saudi Crown and Dreamlike up top. Obviously, Saudi Crown's come back to really flatter that form of that race, but Reincarnate's got the best, but you'll see Newgrange 119, Mixto 118, Highland Falls 119. So they're all really kind of in lockstep on the time form numbers. But I think I clicked on the wrong race. I clicked on Formulator. I still think you need to take this horse. Either you take that form in those allowance races for what it is, and if he can class up. But I think that's the main question in this race, Noah.
Yeah, I kind of had him like as a fourth or fifth horse in here. I just think people are going to bet those connections. Giroux's coming over, and Brad Cox, 3-1 on the line might be even lower than that. And to your point, I'm not really sure if this horse kind of classes up to this group. I think he got some pretty favorable trips in the last two, which I think those numbers might be a little inflated. And I'm just not willing to take him at that price. And I think shipping over here is a little harder than people think. It's definitely not a cakewalk. People say shipping east to west is, you take those East Invaders. I'm not 100% convinced on that. And at that price, definitely not.
Yeah. Look, definitely classes up on numbers. Like, I'm not going to completely sugarcoat it. But no, to your point, you are absolutely correct that kind of favorable trip angle for Highland Falls, and maybe he'll end up getting it again in this spot. But I'd rather have a horse like Subsanador or Newgate even that's going to kind of get that very similar trip to Highland Falls. And as you pointed out, I think this horse will end up getting bet, but no matter where you go, I think there's still going to be value. I think Newgrange might go off at 2-1, maybe somewhere in that kind of range. But like I said, there's not a whole lot of horses you can discount in this race. I mean, Reincarnate, I've never really liked, but I mean, if he gets out to the lead, who's to say? Highland Falls, don't really know too much. Mixto, who I like a little bit. Salesman, who Noah brought up, that if he kind of shows what he did here and kind of improves off that, is definitely in the mix. Newgate for Baffert, Subsanador, and Newgrange. Even though it's an only 7-horse field, I think this is actually a pretty good rendition of the big cap, and it's going to be a pretty good betting race. No matter which way you go, I think you'll get pretty good value no matter which way you look. But I'm going 7-3-6. That's Newgrange, Mixto, Subsanador. Noah's going 6-5-7. That is Subsanador, Newgate, and Newgrange. I'm super proud of myself that I went through that entire thing without mixing those two up. So
it's impressive.
I'll never do it again. So my ADD ass will never do that again. So don't hold me to that. But guys, we're going to switch over to race number 9. And this is the one stakes race the one non-stakes race in this sequence. And my God, is it an absolute doozy. It's a 4-year-olds and up fillies and mares go an N1X allowance going down the hill at 6.5 furlongs. And I bring up the Equibase right now. And you want full fields in California, you get full fields now. It is a full field of 12 with 1 also eligible. And that also eligible is live. So keep a little bit an eye if Avantap does end up getting in this race. But the morning line favorite for the 9th race is the number 8, right? Yeah. Don't you forget for Pratt and Peter Miller. Second choice is going to be the number 11, Summer Lake for Free Sue and Carla Gaines, with third choice being shared between, besides the also eligible, third choice in the main body of the field being shared between 3 horses, the 1 Real Fire, number 5 Venganza, and the number 10 Get the Money. And as I switch over the picks right now, Noah, you and I are kind of lockstep in this, and I know I mentioned it to you after you looked at the race, and I was actually very surprised that you had this horse in here. I'm going with number 3 on top. You have the number 3 in second. That is a 12-1 morning line horse for Richard Baltus coming off a layoff. But I'll let you talk first. You have the number 1 Real Fire on top, Rispoli and Steve Knapp, which obviously never hurts to have those connections, has down the hill experience, and has run some pretty good races at that.
Yeah, even though this is the only non-stake race that we're talking about, I mean, this is about as difficult as it gets. I think I had 9 horses when I first went through it. So I mean, in terms of difficulty, this is about as good as it gets. I ended up landing on a Real Fire, who seems a little bit. He tends to get a little bit goofy, especially with these down the hill races where they kind of cross over on that dirt. But I just think, from a numbers standpoint, I think he could be definitely a major player in here. The speed is a question for me, just because I'm not really sure who's going to go to the lead in this field. Yeah, you can see he's just. I
He
think
lucked out.
that's a race 4 back, right? Yeah,
That
that's a race
is,
against Mediha
yeah.
on Breeders' Cup weekend.
But he still finishes really well, is what I think I will say.
Yeah, and then if you want to show the race 2 back,
Yep.
I think that one was a little more severe. He's a 9 horse in that field, and he kind of comes with that same run on the outside, about 4 or 5 wide. He's in the yellow and the black checkered. This one he does a little bit of a duck more than the race 4 back.
Yeah, so he just gets really goofy going across the dirt. But once he gets back on the turf, I will say he finishes up really well, and you'll see him start to fly here on the outside. There was no catching Lunar Impact that day, but Real Fire, a little goofy with the lead changes here as well. But once he starts getting on the right lead and start motoring home, he really does well. Just ends up actually losing that photo for second. But that's one thing why I didn't like about Real Fire. It's just that I don't like horses that have the down the hill experience and just get goofy over that. I like to see professionalism over that dirt. But if Real Fire's in a little bit more of a contentious spot this time with a little bit more pace in front of him or her, excuse me. Dang it, I did that. That's my first one in a long time. I will say that. But cheers.
Hey, you got the news though, so
I did get the news.
You get the
correct.
excuse.
I told you I can't go. Perfect.
You can't have both.
No kidding. But either way. Real Fire is definitely one to keep in mind for sure. With a little bit more pace in front of her, I think she could definitely be a major factor. Noah, we'll talk about the 8. We'll get to the 3 last because that's the horse I really want to spend a little bit of time on. The number 11, Summer Lake for Carly Gaines. I have second, you have third. From pace scenario wise, that last race down the hill, I think this it is going into open company this time. I will say that for the first time in her career, but Summer Lake after that last race does make a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I thought the last race was pretty impressive. She got to the lead pretty convincingly and kind of just put him away. I don't really know how great that field was.
Right.
But like I mentioned previously, the pace in here is a little bit of a question. And I think the 11 post, we've touched on it before. The 11 post going down the hill is very favorable. So if you've got a horse that can show some early speed and is taking the shortest way around the track, that can definitely be to their benefit. I know you'll touch on it later. Dettori rode last time, and he's not on this time. I mean, you do pick up Frazu, who's, one of the best turf riders out there. But with the 3, as we lead into it, it is very interesting that Dettori ends up on this Baltus training.
Yeah, and we talk about those outside posts being favorable, as you can see by the track graph. They do have a right hand bend, and they have a long time to go to that first turn, as opposed to how short they have to get over from this turn here. So the outside posts end up being actually pretty favorable as to the inside posts, albeit it's not the biggest thing in the world, but it still is something to keep note of. And I have the number 8. Don't you forget, the morning line favorite. I know, Noah, you're not the biggest fan of this horse, but off this last race at 6 furlongs, I think definitely the first time an open company showed that she can run was end up being 15-1 off of these state bred races, but still ran a pretty nice race. Is if she's able to get that down the hill against a little bit, not necessarily easier competition, but kind of that same competition she was running against. She's only been getting better these last few times. If she can put it all together, I think Don't You Forget is definitely favorable to win, obviously, and also with getting Pratt aboard. But Noah, this is the horse that I have on top. 12-1 morning line. Baltus, it was back on the block here. Blinkers off, gets time off, ends up maturing into her 4-year-old season. This is the first spot that Baltus ends up putting her in, first off the trainer switch from Papadromo. I think she makes a lot of sense. And 12 to 1 morning line, I'm willing to take a shot with the horse off the layoff. I'm going to bring up Baltus's stats in a minute, in a second as well, but she's not far off on numbers by any means. That race and she's been running in the Previdencia and the Honeymoon behind horses like Pleasant Wave, Selenia. I can do Manhattan Jungle. There's a lot of horses in here that, as they continue to improve, they would be pretty low in here. And I think the switch to Baltus and the equipment change, I think, is a positive note, Noah, as I bring up Baltus's stats.
Yeah. Well, if for people that aren't familiar, Baltus actually got suspended for about a year. So he just started training. I think he only had one runner in 2023, and that was, I think, either the last week or 2 weeks before the new year. But Baltus has slowly started to get some more runners at this Santa Anita meet. And he the first month and a half, he was a little cold. I don't if that could be a coincidence. That could not be. I'm not going to speculate. But he's been doing pretty well with a couple of runners last time. He had a really nice winner down the hill last weekend. Who I think Rispoli was on. The name is passing me right now. But yeah, talk about a trainer that's very capable of bringing a horse off the layoff. And like I pointed, Dettori is never going to hurt.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that as I get off of this. But 24 for 101 the last 5 years over a 6 month layoff, and you bring that with trainer switch off of that layoff. It's a little bit of a smaller sample size, but still 4 for 14, winning almost 39% with half in the money. If this horse is going to be 12 to 1, double digits, takes up Dettori over, at Baltus, obviously, but this horse coming off this layoff versus this 11, who makes a lot of sense in here, especially off that last race where Dettori rode and won. Why does Dettori choose off that and come over here? I'm not usually one for jockey gymnastics, as Noah points out, but I feel like this has got to be it's got to be a sign to say that this Baltus horse could be very live, and it might bring down that price. I'm still hoping for high single digits if anything, because no matter who you land on in this race, you're going to get good value no matter what. Again, just another really good betting race on this day's card. But Pleasant Wave is very, very interesting for me for all the reasons that we mentioned. And the fact that this horse is going to be either high singles or low double digits makes her even more interesting to me. And I could be completely wrong. There's a lot of horses that could vie for this win, being the horses we mentioned, and even some other ones in here that have, like the number 5 in Ganza for Mandela, who we didn't really touch on, is going to be coming from way back, but is not completely out of it by any means. The number 7, Harley Levade, Gary Stutz trained a lot of runners to win and is 10 for 13 in the money. This horse on numbers makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of different ways you can go in this race, but I think that horse at 12 to 1 makes a lot of sense, especially with the rider switch and maturing into her 4-year-old year. But I'm going 3, 11, 8. That's Pleasant Wave, Summer Lake, and don't you forget, Noah's going 1, 3, 11. That's Real Fire, Pleasant Wave, Summer Lake. Guys, going to switch to the last race here, and this is the 4th and last stakes race on the card. It's the Grade 2 Buena Vista Stakes for going a mile on the turf for fillies and mares 4-year-old and up. So basically, it's just the female version of the Frank Kilroe Mile. And as I bring up the Equibase right now, it draws a field of 11, Noah. The first few might be short, but these two are no short of horses by any means. Morning line favorite is, again, another lukewarm favorite at 7 to 2 to number 6, Ruby Nell for Maldonado and Rich Mandela. Number 4, Bella Bell for Pratt and D'Amato gets second choice at 4 to 1. Third choice being the number 8, Closing Remarks. And as I switch over to race number 10, Noah, you are going with a different horse. It is actually the 4th choice, the number 11, Moofy. I apologize. I should probably know that, but I'm gonna call her Moofy for the entire time. And if I'm wrong, then so be it. Whatever. Frankie Dettori, Jonathan Thomas picks up the mount, and this is the horse. No, I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't know what to do with. Makes a lot of sense from that last race, but for reasons why I went with Bella Bell instead of her. I'll touch on in a second. What'd you like most about the number 11 Moofy?
Well, I feel like I should first touch on Ruby Nell, because I think we're kind of thinking similarly. Just with the difficulty of this race, I'm just kind of not willing to take Ruby Nell at what the price that I think she'll be. And a lot of that contributes to, I think that the 5 Kissed by Fire, she is extremely fast and I think can cause some problems. So that just scares me a little bit. So I tried to look elsewhere, and it's not a super confident pick, but I went with Moufy or Moofy, I don't really say it. My stance to kind of start this winter meet at Santa Anita was that Jonathan Thomas kind of isn't bringing his best stuff over here. But my outlook has kind of changed, where I think that his horses kind of need one. And I think she kind of needed one last time. And she had a lot of trip, and she was really eager. Kyle, if you want to pull up that replay, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But she's in the same race as Bella Bell. She's the one doing about as they cross the wire for the first time.
Okay.
And you can see she is very headstrong, very eager to go. Kamuro's got her really wrapped up, and she does it repeatedly. So I think that, plus she had some even more trouble throughout the race.
Right here, she's really
you
tight.
can tell she's got some run. But Bella Bell, who Kyle's got on top, just kind of got away with murder on the front end that time. I don't know if she's really going to be able to do that or from another different tactical standpoint. But I just think there's more there with Moofy. And Dottori, a guy that we've touched on in previous races, hops aboard. So I think, with all that being said, with the trouble last time, you hop on a Hall of Fame jockey for a barn that I think does better second time out. That's the direction that I was inclined to go.
Yeah, and I mean, you said, it's not the strongest pick by any means, but she makes a lot of sense. I mean, if she's able to get that kind of same, stalking trip, and she's definitely going to be more outside this time, which might favor her, but she always comes with her run. So I think Moofy makes a lot of sense, and obviously picking up Dottori, as we touched on, never hurts. I did go with Bella Bell, and there's a few reasons why. The numbers are a little bit low, but not that low on time form. And the fact of the matter is that I think last time she got away with murder, personally, no, I just think she was better. No one really wanted to go. So she's like, well, Pratt's like, I'm going to race ride. I'll see you guys later. I mean, that whole way down the stretch wasn't necessarily in hand, but it was 2 strikes and a shoulder tap was all it took for Bella Bell to really kind of clear everybody and just kick it in gear and keep a length and a half advantage the whole way down the stretch. These races right here in the San Clement and the Blue Northern are the races that I'm thinking Bella Bell is going to get the trip. I think she's going to sit that 2.5 lengths back and be able to power through at the top of the stretch. She doesn't necessarily need a lot of pace in front of her either. And the only 2 blemishes on her record, Noah, are in the Del Mar Oaks and the QE2. 2 grade 1s, and losing to 4.5 to Spenderella, and losing by 2 to Gina Romantica. And in this spot, what would Spenderella and Gina Romantica be? I mean, granted, those were back in 2022. This is also second off a long layoff for Bella Bell, in which D'Amato might not even have her fully cranked for that megahertz either. I think this is a great spot for Bella Bell to be in. And you mentioned that speed with Ruby Nell and the 5 to just to her outside Kissed by Fire. I would love for Bella Bell to use a little bit of her tactical speed that I know she has and be able to sit kind of in that pocket right off the speed type of trip and be able to go by it, maybe the 8th pole or a little bit before that. I just think she kind of trips out in this spot. And second off a massive layoff, I think she can really take another step forward and really show her best at the start of her 5-year-old campaign. But again, I could be completely wrong. You touched on Ruby Nell. I completely echo the same sentiments. I think she does her mighty best running on the lead, although she has shown to be able to pass horses in the past. Obviously, running a length and 3/4 behind Didia is nothing short of a great effort. I just don't know if Ruby Nell is going to get a very favorable trip in here. And I think she'll be a little bit bet. I think she'll be bet a little bit lower than 7-2, to your point, Noah, as well. I have the number 8 closing remarks. I didn't get very creative in here with my top 3 guys. I think they're just realistically a little bit better than everyone else. But again, I didn't know what to do with Moofy, so I could be completely wrong there. But Matriarch, Goldikova, Rodeo Drive, all those races were very, very good from her. She is a little bit pace dependent. I think she needs a little bit of pace, but I does think she gets that in here. I actually had her above Ruby Nell the entire time, and then I was a little bit worried if Ruby Nell does end up just sitting right off the 5, she could just end up being better and win by a couple. But closing remarks, if she gets pace to run into, as we saw in the Goldikova on Breeders' Cup Day, I think she makes a lot of sense in this scenario and could be one that could be hard to beat if they do, like I said, they go fast up front. But no, the last horse we'll touch on, and I know you have a pretty strong opinion. It's probably for that same type of reason why I kind of like closing remarks, just at almost 3 times the price.
Yeah. I've always been a big fan of Lucky Girls. It just seems like a lot of times she seems to run a little flat, but every once in a while she'll pop a big effort, and she did that too back in the swing time. I think the tactic with her is to just kind of get her out in the clear, and even if you have to go 7-8 wide, just get her away from other horses and just let her go. So if Racing does that, I think she's going to be coming late. I don't know if there's going to be enough speed with those 2, the 5 and the 6, to kind of set it up for her. But if they do, this is the deep closer that I want, and I think she's definitely capable of running a really good race in here.
Yeah, and the last thing we'll show, I don't disagree with you. And like I said, my thing, I don't talk people off of double-digit horses, but that's the same reason why I like closing remarks. I just personally think closing remarks might be a little bit better. But again, for 3 times less the price, you got to find your way between value and obviously ability. They're going to be right next to each other. They have the 5 and the 6 going out in front. Time form that is as exactly what we've been touching on. Like I said, Bella Bell getting that trip that I envisioned for her. I would love for her to sit 2 wide, be able to go tip out at the top of the stretch and go by Ruby Nell. That's my inclination what's going to happen. But as we all know, we can talk about pace scenario the whole time, and that Ruby Nell will end up, going out to the lead by 2 and never looking back, which she's definitely capable of and has shown before. But I'm hoping for a little bit of pace pressure from the 5. I'm going 4, 6, 8. That's Bella Bell, Ruby Nell, closing remarks. Noah's going 11, 6, 3. That's Moofy, Ruby Nell, and the number 3, Lucky Girl. Noah, going to move to our best bets here. As like I said, thank you guys all for watching. Again, if you guys are still watching, we really appreciate it. Please hit the like button and comment down below who you think is going to win the Santa Anita Big Cap on Saturday. We read every single comment. Would love to have a discussion with you below the video player. Also, don't forget, that merch is still live, guys. March 3rd is the last day you can purchase it. If you're watching this before or on Big Cap Day or just before, that is the last day to buy your merch, the day of the Big Cap, Sunday, March 3rd. No late orders are accepted. Again, the link is in the very top of the description. Please go support the podcast and rep some really cool merch, which I think came out really, really well. There's both Bettin N Boozin merch and HHH Racing Podcast merch on there as well. Please go check it out. Again, link is in the top of the description. But no, let's get into our best bets here. Obviously, you're going to go first. Race number 7, you're going to go a double 2-8 with 6. Singling Subsanador, you're going with Easter and Goliad, the 2 horses that we thought were pretty wrapped up in that race against singling Subsanador. And then race number 10, the horse that we just talked about, the number 3, Lucky Girl underneath. Noah, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, so race 7, guys, I really like Subsanador. And I think the 2 and the 8, although they're not creative, I think I can get it out of the race with those 2. So if I'm right about Subsanador, and I don't think, even if Easter wins, I think he'll be 8-5, 7-5. So if I can pair one of those 2, and I'm right about Subsanador, I'm going to make sure that I get my money's worth.
Yeah.
And then in the last race, I think both the 9th and the 10th race, from a vertical standpoint, there's a lot of value there. Even if Ruby Nell gets bet, I think you can make a lot of money there. So I think that's why I went with Lucky Girl, who I don't know if she's going to get enough speed to set it up for her, but she's got some races previous that can compete with this group. And if she runs well, she's going to be double digits. And if you get some others with her, then from an exacta or a trifecta standpoint, you're going to make some money. So those are my two.
I mean, the old boss's favorite versus Key Try. I know he'll be proud of that one. Noah, good luck with your best bets. And these are mine, guys. I'm going to go race number 6. I'm going to do a Stone Cold double. I understand Nisos, but I'm hoping that Easter gets bet down. And there's other horses in there that will hopefully take a little bit of money where I can get a little bit of value with Goliad. I'm hoping for 5-1 on that double. 5-1 or higher, maybe 4-1 I will take, but to get me at a good price to be able to beat Easter, I think 5-1 is a fair price with what I think is, I mean, I'm not going to say the word, but if Nisos loses, I don't know what to say. Nisos with Goliad as my ice cold double starting in race 6. And in race number 10, guys, I talked about how much I love Bella Bell, and I think the trip she's going to get. I ended up going second off the layoff with a win in race number 10 on number 4, Bella Bell. And I think she'll be probably somewhere in that 4-1, 9-2 range, which is very good value for me in a spot that looks pretty wide open. But guys, that is going to end up doing it for race number. All right, that's enough. That's enough podcast for the week. We got to chill out until
episode number
Saturday and Sunday. But that's going to do it for special episode 64 of Bettin N Boozin, a special tape show covering Big Cap Day and the Late Pick 5 at Santa Anita. For my co-host Noah Maher, this has been Kyle Roscoe in episode number 64 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. And until next time, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.